This lesson is Create Searching Methods. The objectives for this lesson are to create a searching design pattern. We're going to create a SearchBase class and a ProductSearch class. We're then going to add search methods to our product repository class called search, add where clause, and add order by clause. We're going to then add a search endpoint on our product route. A potential problem for adding searching to your web API is that a user may wish to search many different ways. They may want to search just by name, just by list price, by name and list price, or a lot of other combinations of properties. And the problem is you don't want to have to add that many endpoints to support all these different combinations. So instead, what we can do is create a search class with properties to search by. Then we add a single endpoint that will accept a query with various things that you can pass on that query line, and will then map those to the appropriate properties in that search class. Let's create our base search class and our product search class. Right mouse click on the base classes folder and add a new class called SearchBase. We have one property in here called order by that we will initialize in each of the constructors. The first constructor, we just initialize it to a string.empty. We do have an optional constructor that you can pass something in to set that order by as well. Next, let's go over and right mouse click on the project, add a new folder called search classes. We'll right mouse click in here and add a new class called ProductSearch. Let's go ahead and put some code in here. Now this one here, what it does is it's going to inherit from SearchBase. In the constructor, we're going to initialize the name property to an empty string. We'll initialize the order by from the base class to name. And we're going to have a public decimal, which is a nullable, called list price. So we want to be able to search by either name or by list price when we're searching through the product data. Now, unlike in MVC, there is no automatic parameter binding in the minimal web API, meaning that if you have that product search class that has the name and the list price, and you make a route to it, and you call it using name and list price on the URL, it's not going to automatically bind those properties to the product search object, which is a little bit of a bummer, but all we have to do is add a BindAsync method to our search class, and we can write code to line these things up. So let's take a look at adding the BindAsync method. Let's add a new method called BindAsync. The HTTP context will be passed to this because this method is called whenever this is used as the argument to a function that's mapped to one of your app.map gets or map posts. What we do is we use that HTTP context to request the various things that we're expecting on the query line. So line 26, we create a new instance of our product search. And inside of there, I'm going to try to set the name property to the HTTP context.request.query name. So if name exists on that query line, we'll get it. Otherwise, we'll just get an empty string. Now for the list price, I need to check if it's not only there, but is also a decimal. So I'm going to use the if decimal.tryParse. I'm going to have an out variable called list price. If this is true, that there is something there and it is a decimal, then the search.listPrice property will be set to that list price that's the result of the tryParse. Otherwise, list price is a default of null because it was a nullable property. Finally, we just return the value task.fromResult product search, and then we pass in that search object. In this way, we now have a search object ready to go. Now that we have our data in our product search object, let's add search and order by methods to our product repository class. Open the product repository.cs and let's add in just a few new methods here. The first one is going to be called search, and it's going to accept that product search object. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create an iQueryable product query, and I initialize that by calling _dbcontext.products. Now remember, when you do this, it doesn't actually execute the query. It builds a query object. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to be able to add a where clause and I want to be able to add an order by clause before I submit that to the server. So I've got a couple other methods here. I've got an add where clause that I pass in that iQueryable and I pass in the product search. I now can do the searching, right? I can just check to see if not string.isNull or empty, search.name. So did the user pass in the name equals some value on the query line? And if so, then I'm going to do query equals query.where. So I'm adding on to the just select asterisk from products. I'm adding on a where clause that says, hey, find all the rows where the name starts with the search.name. Then I check to see if the list price has been filled in. And if it has a value, then I'm going to add another where clause on there as well, which is row.listPrice greater than or equal to that search list price. We get that query back. We then take that query and we pass it with the search again down to this add order by. So we add that to the add order by method down here. And this one checks to see that search.orderBy property. Remember that? We added that to the SearchBase class. And then we check to see what it is. If it's name, let's add a query.orderBy row.name. So now I've got a select asterisk from products where maybe the name starts with an A or an R or something. And I've also added on order by the name. When all this is done, I've got that query. If I do a query.toList, then boom, it actually submits that query and brings the data back. Now that we have the search method in our repository class, we need to update the interface so that we can use that search method wherever we want to use our repository. In the product repository, the search method is the only one that is public. The add where clause is protected, and the add order by clause is protected. So the only one we need to expose in our interface is the search method. So let's take a look at how we change our interface now so that we can use the search method. Let's open the IRepository, and we're going to change this T now. Let's rename this to T entity. And we're going to then add a second data type that we're going to expect them to pass in called T-search. And the reason why is because we want to now add our search method into our repository like so. So now we're going to have a list of T-entity, but to do that, we need to pass in our product search class or our customer search or whatever. Now, by changing this interface, we've now broken a lot of places in our application. So if we do a build here, we should see that we're going to get some errors. If we go to the iProduct repository, the first thing we want to do now is change this and add on product search. So that now fixes that up, but we still have other places that we have some issues with. So as you'll see, every place that we were passing that product, that iRepository product, now needs to be product and product search. So we need to add comma product search onto all of our methods there. So there's quite a few places that we do have to fix up here. But again, we have to do this just one time. After this, you're going to create your new repositories using these additional methods, right? So you're going to always use this interface now. But let's just go through. We'll fix them all up here. All right, so now let's see. We still got one here. All right, so there's that. If we open up the service extension as well, and down here, you're going to find also right here, we need to add on that comma product search in the add repository classes. So in that method, make sure you fix that up. And now let's go ahead and do a build and make sure that we have fixed every single place. So we're now ready to continue on. Now let's add a search endpoint for performing the search of our data. Open up the product router class, and right before the insert method, let's add a new protected virtual iResult search, to which we're going to pass in a product search object. And of course, we're going to have it inject the iRepository. Now we write code just like we did on the gets pretty much, where we're going to have a list of products that's being returned. We're going to now on line 118 call list equals repo.search. So there's our search, passing in the search object with whatever the user has filled in that they want to see. Then on line 120, we check to make sure that the list does not come back as null and that there's more than one item in there. And if so, we return the results.ok in returning the list of data. Otherwise, we return a results.notfound. And of course, the catch looks like all the other ones. All right, let's go back up now and find our add routes. And right before the app.map post, let's add another map.get. This one will be for our search. So you can see it's passing in the product search at the repository, and then it calls our new protected search method. So let's go ahead and run this. Now, the problem is when you have something that isn't a add, edit, delete, or a normal get, it'll show up, but you don't get the parameters. It doesn't know about a class and parameters. Now, you could do some other things to make that work, but to test it out, it's just as easy to come up here to the URL line, and we do the HTTP localhost 5038/API/product/search. Then we can add however many parameters that we have in that product search class. So we have question mark, name equals R, ampersand, list price equals 3,000. Now, if I had more properties, I could do another ampersand and then property equals value. But if we run this from here, okay, now you can see we get the data. So this is a subset of the product list. We could also change this and just look for things that are like a name of R or maybe a name of A. So now we're getting just those products that start with A. So there we go. We've created some search functionality. In this lesson, we created a base search class and a product search class. We added methods to our repository class to perform searching and even sorting. We updated our IRepository interface to now accept a search class as well as the entity. And we took advantage of deferred execution in LINQ and added a search route for doing our searching. Coming up next, making asynchronous API calls.